Hi Phil, we're starting in the forward head, just a standard head. You know how to operate that thing. Uh, these are three buttons here. One is for the left one is for the wash down pump, the middle one is for the shower, and this one is for lights. You have to have the 12-volt and shower pump on the main panel in order for them to operate. Cleaning supplies are in here. The fans and the lamps in the forward cabin all work off the 12-volt switch on the main panel, and I'll show you where it is in a second. Oh, the forward water tank is underneath this bunk, just in case you ever need to get to it. There's an inspection port on top of it, and the leak claws are tucked in under the mattress. Okay, let's just look at the main panel. So this one up in the left hand corner is the main DC switch, so that turns off all the DC inside the boat except for the bilge pump. The bilge pump will run even with that thing off, but that's the first thing that comes on. Typically when we get to the boat, we'll put the cabin lights on. That controls the lights in the aft cabin. The salon lights controls the lights in the main cabin. The gas valve is the propane locker solenoid. Spoiler lights don't work. Steaming light is off. Anchor light works fine. And nav lights you got to put on. Panel lights just lights up the panel at night. The fresh water pump, I typically turn it off when I leave the boat for any length of time. The bilge pump, okay, is the manual, and that pump can do two things. It can pump the sump of the bilge. It can also pump the refrigerator, and I'll show you where the switch is in a second. We always leave the refrigerator on. Shower pump has to be on for the showers to work, and also there's a little transfer pump that will take water from the forward cabin into the main bilge that runs off that switch. The other thing that runs off that switch is the washdown pump. Electronics have to be on, obviously, otherwise you're going to have your tic tacs talk to you funny and beep at you. VHF is right there. Tricolor light, that's the tricolor at the top of the mast, and autopilot. So that's all pretty self-explanatory. This panel here is the panel for the DC, so it only works, number one, if you're plugged into shore power, or number two, if you use the inverter. Do not ever use the water heater with the inverter. If you need hot water when you're out cruising, run the engine for 20 minutes and you'll have hot water. But you can switch it on so that you can run 110 appliances like a toaster oven or something like that. Typically when I leave the boat, I turn this off. There's the radio. This is a redundant instrument from old times. This is not hooked up to anything, but it could. The little monitor. And in order to get in behind this panel, remember there's a little screw down here that has to be lifted up, and then the panel flips down. Under this settee right here is where the autopilot computer is, right there, and all the manuals for the boat are in there as well. We talked about the true hull that the water maker was hooked up to. At one point you should probably plug it when you get a chance. Yes. Okay. So under this settee here is where the water system on the boat is. Okay, these two valves there, the one to the right is the forward tank, and that's open right now. The one to the left is the aft tank. The forward tank, I just filled it, and it's got a deck fill with a blue label on it. The aft tank I think is full, and the only way to fill it is through the aft cabin. I'll show you in a second how to do that. This is the little handle. When it's up, let me just double check that. up, it's used as a pump for pumping the fridge. So when you get any water in the fridge, at the bottom of it, if you have a bunch of ice in there and stuff, you'll just pull it up and you can pump the water out. When it's down like this, it pumps the bilge. And the standard position should be bilge pump, because if you ever need the bilge pump, you don't want to pump the fridge and wait for the water to get up there. So just keep that on. This is the water heater. This little fitting right there is a overpressure thing. It's been changed recently. The water heater is new from last year, so that should all work for the next 10-15 years without any problem. The blue thing is a redundant filter that we used in Denmark because there's a lot of calcium in the water. So that's why we did that. You probably already know, but the booze cabinet is right here. Here's your scotch, some gammeldansk and some wine. And we keep the thing for starting the stove right up here. Okay, on this side of the in the galley, here's the access panel, and that is the side of the engine where you have the fuel pump. It's up here. My flashlight, but Phil can show you where it is. But if you ever change the oil or have fuel supply issues, that's where the manual pump to pump the fuel is. Okay, starting batteries down there. This is the strainer. If you don't get water coming out of the back end of the boat, go check the strainer. You might have sucked the fish in or something, I don't know. It's only happened to me once. This button here is a breaker for the windlass. You have to turn the windlass on in the aft cabin in order to make it work, but if it overworks itself, that's where the breaker goes off, and you can go reset it and it'll work again with some luck. I don't know what else is in here. Nothing much to talk about. Okay, let's go to the back end. Okay, here's some spare belts. That's an element for the Raycor fuel filter, which is down under the bunk in the aft cabin. Engine battery is isolated, house battery. Then you got the windlass jumper. Everything else doesn't really do much of anything. You can turn everything off by turning the black switch. That's the negative ground that turns every piece of equipment, electrical on the boat off. But, if you don't want to have the engine battery, well, there would be no reason. I keep it on all the time, so I wouldn't worry about it. Down here on the side of the bed right here, that's an emergency fuel shut-off. So if you ever get an engine fire, which you probably won't, you pull that thing and it cuts off the fuel going into the engine compartment. Oh, the radio turned itself on. Okay, that's it for the inside of the boat for right now. This gizmo up here is the motor for the electric winch. back here you have a couple of things. So you got the master breaker, is the one on the outboard side. If you turn that off, then you won't get shore power into the boat. Next to it is the battery charger. It's a smart charger. It's new from like 2 years ago. Whenever you plug the boat in to shore power, that will automatically go on and charge the batteries. Next to it is the inverter, and in order to operate the inverter, you only use that if you need 110 power inside the boat when you're out cruising. In order to do it, you obviously don't have to be on shore power. There is a switch down there that says shore and generator. You switch it to generator, and then you, on the yellow button on the inverter, you press the yellow button and you get 110 inside the boat. The batteries are down in the bottom of this